Ethan Ward moved slowly through the ruined streets of Varian, stepping over broken metal and shattered stone. The morning air was filled with dust that floated like dull snowflakes, settling on his armor and visor. His boots felt heavier with each step, not because of the weight of his gear, but because of the silence. Silence on a battlefield was never comforting. It meant something was wrong, or something dangerous was hiding, waiting. But today, his team had confirmed this zone was supposed to be empty. Everyone, human or alien, was believed to be evacuated. He checked his helmet scanner again, seeing only static readings and flickers of energy from collapsed infrastructure. Sector 12 is clear, he murmured, though he wasn't speaking to anyone in particular. His squad was spread across nearby streets, each checking different buildings. The ceasefire was holding for now, but peace on Varian had a way of breaking without warning. He turned into a narrow alley where walls were cracked open like broken ribs. Inside was the entrance of a former alien school building, though it barely looked like one anymore. Ethan paused, breathing slowly. Something tugged at him, some instinct, some feeling he couldn't explain. He should have moved on, marked the building as empty, and continued with protocol, but his feet didn't listen. He stepped inside. The hallway was dark except for weak sunlight filtering through broken roof panels. Alien symbols, once bright and full of color, were now scorched and peeling from the walls. Each step echoed softly. Ethan tried to tell himself the uneasy feeling was just the building settling, but then he heard it. A sound, so small he thought he imagined it. He stood still, listening. There it was again, a tiny whimper, like someone trying not to cry. Ethan's heart tightened. This wasn't a soldier. This wasn't an enemy unit. This was something helpless. He followed the sound, moving slowly and keeping his weapon lowered. The whimper came again, from behind a collapsed section of ceiling. Ethan pushed aside a slab of broken stone and bent down to look underneath. A pair of large, glowing eyes stared back at him. An alien child, small, trembling, with pale blue skin and silver markings along the cheeks huddled under the rubble. The child couldn't have been older than 6 or 7 in human years. They pressed their hands against their chest, terrified by the human soldier towering over them. Ethan immediately removed his helmet, setting it down so the child could see his face. He knew alien children reacted better to uncovered human expressions. "Hey," he whispered gently. "It's okay." The child didn't understand the words, but they watched his face carefully. Ethan smiled softly, lowering himself to one knee. He placed his hands in front of him, palms open, showing he held no threat. The child blinked slowly. Hesitation, fear, curiosity. Ethan gently shifted the fallen beam just enough to reach inside. "Come on," he whispered. "You're safe now." The child flinched when he touched their arm. But then something changed. The trembling stopped a little. Maybe it was his warm touch. Maybe his calm voice. Or maybe they simply felt too tired to resist. Whatever the reason, the child crawled into Ethan's arms. Small and fragile, limbs shaking. "You're all right," he murmured. He stood, holding the child carefully, as if carrying something made of glass. He looked around the ruined hallway. How long had this child been trapped here? Alone? Hungry? Afraid? Ethan pressed a button on his communicator. "Command, I found a civilian survivor, an alien child. I'm bringing..." Before he finished, a loud mechanical hum vibrated through the walls. Ethan froze. Enemy drones. The scanners on the floating machines could detect heat signatures instantly. And they were close, too close. The ceasefire agreement did not apply to automated units. They attacked anything alive. He lifted the child higher against his chest. "Don't look," he whispered, turning to shield them with his armored body. The drone burst through the broken doorway with a harsh screech of metal and light. Ethan spun around, pressing the child's head against his shoulder as the machine scanned the room. A red targeting beam swept across the stone floor, then lifted toward Ethan. His pulse hammered in his ears. He had seconds at best. He ran. The drone fired, blasting a chunk of the wall beside him. Stone fragments flew across his armor. The child whimpered into his chest, clinging tightly, fingers digging into his vest. Ethan didn't care about the pain. He only cared that the little one survived. He dove behind a fallen pillar, curling around the child. Another blast struck the pillar, shaking dust loose. Ethan's armor absorbed part of the shock, but the vibrations rattled his bones. The drone prepared another shot. He had no time to think, only to act. Ethan shifted his body completely over the child, creating a shield of armor and muscle. A scorching flash tore across his back as the drone's energy hit the pillar again, breaking it further. Ethan gritted his teeth, refusing to move even an inch away from protecting the child. The drone hummed, building power for a final shot. Then, silence. A sudden metallic crack echoed behind him. Ethan looked back to see the drone falling to the ground, sparks flickering from a deep gash across its core. Something or someone had destroyed it. He turned forward again, slowly adjusting his arms, as the child peeked out with wide eyes. In the shadows near the broken entrance stood a tall alien woman. Her skin shimmered with silver patterns similar to the child's, but brighter, sharper, like the markings of a warrior. Her long dark hair was tied behind her in a style Ethan recognized high-ranking military. Her eyes, glowing violet, locked on him with an expression he couldn't understand. Shock, confusion, pain, and something else. Something softer. She had seen everything. Ethan held the child a little closer. "It's okay," he whispered again. Though he didn't know if the woman understood him either. The alien woman stepped forward slowly, her movements controlled and silent. She didn't raise a weapon. Instead, she knelt, placing a hand over her heart, a gesture Ethan had only seen in alien cultural briefings. It meant sorrow, loss, hope. Her gaze fell to the child in his arms. She said something in her language, voice trembling. The child's eyes widened. They reached a small hand out to her. Ethan blinked, realizing the truth. This was the child's mother. She had been searching for them, fearing the worst. Ethan slowly extended his arms, letting the child lean toward her. The woman caught the little one gently, pulling them close with a desperate embrace. She closed her eyes as her forehead touched the child's, holding them tightly as if afraid they would vanish. Ethan stepped back, giving them space, but the woman didn't let him leave. She looked up at him, rising to her full height, taller than a human, strong, proud. Yet her eyes were filled with gratitude so deep that Ethan felt a lump in his throat. She spoke softly, a few words he didn't understand, then touched her forehead and extended her hand toward him. Ethan had no idea what the gesture meant, but he understood her emotions. She wasn't angry. She wasn't hostile. She was thankful. Footsteps sounded outside the building. Ethan turned as two human soldiers rushed in, weapons raised. They froze when they saw the alien woman and the child. Ethan raised his hand. "Stand down. She's not attacking." The mother positioned herself slightly in front of her child, but her eyes remained on Ethan, almost as if she were waiting for him to speak for her. One soldier whispered urgently, "Ethan, what are you doing? That's a high-ranking alien. You can't just—" "I protected her kid," Ethan said quietly. "That's all." His voice was calm, but inside, something had changed. He felt connected, not just to the child he saved, but to the mother who saw him risk his life with no hesitation. The mother stepped closer again, holding her child with one arm and reaching out with the other. She gently touched Ethan's chest, right over his heartbeat. Her hand lingered there for a moment, warm and steady. Ethan didn't breathe. Then she spoke a single word, soft, certain, filled with meaning he couldn't fully grasp, but he knew it was important. She turned away, carrying her child, but she paused at the doorway and looked back at him one last time. Her eyes were intense, almost promising something. He had no idea what that promise meant, but he could feel the weight of it. Something had started today, something he wasn't prepared for. The alien mother disappeared into the sunlight with her child, and Ethan stood in the broken hallway, feeling strangely changed. He hadn't just saved an enemy child. He had caught the attention of someone powerful, someone who now believed she owed him something, someone who might not let him walk away so easily. And Ethan had no idea that by shielding that child with his own body, he had unknowingly stepped into an ancient alien tradition, one that would soon place him in the center of a conflict far more complicated than war. A conflict of loyalty, honor, and a bond he never agreed to, yet couldn't escape. Part 1 ends with Ethan standing alone, unaware that the alien mother was already preparing to return, not as an enemy, but as someone who now claimed him in a way he didn't yet understand. Ethan tried to sleep that night, but the image of the alien mother's eyes kept returning again and again. He could still feel her hand on his chest, right over his heartbeat, warm and deliberate as if she had marked him in some way. He didn't understand her words, but he remembered the softness in her voice. It wasn't hostility. It wasn't anger. It was something else. Something deeper. He sat up in his bunk, rubbing his face. His fellow soldiers were asleep, except for a guard near the door. The base was quiet now, though the tension in the air felt heavier than usual. Saving an enemy child wasn't normal. Encountering a high-ranking alien officer and walking away unharmed was even stranger. He looked out the small window at the alien sky, where pale purple clouds drifted like slow-moving rivers. The peace between their species had always been unstable, like glass ready to break at the slightest touch. Yet when he held that child and stood face to face with the alien mother, it didn't feel like war. It felt personal, human, real. A soft knock came at the door to the sleeping quarters. The guard opened it and stiffened. Sergeant Ward? Command wants you in the briefing room. Immediately. Ethan frowned, then stood and grabbed his jacket. The guard looked nervous, which meant this wasn't a casual summons. He followed the young man down the dim hallway toward the main operations center. Inside, several officers stood around the central table, faces tense. On the screen was a still image, captured from a drone feed. Ethan froze when he saw it. It was the alien woman. The child was in her arms, sleeping peacefully. She was standing at the border zone under a white flag of truce waiting. Is that who I think it is? Ethan asked quietly. Colonel Hughes nodded. That is HFY Story, a commander from their warrior caste, one of the most respected leaders among their people. The colonel gave him a grave look. And she is asking for you by name. One. I see as long. One. Ethan blinked. By name? She doesn't even speak my language. She said the word Ethan clearly, another officer said. Twice. Then demanded you be brought to her. Demanded? Ethan frowned. Hughes sighed. Yes. She insists you return the favor of protection. Something about completing a bond or fulfilling a right. We're trying to translate it. Ethan's chest tightened. A right? What kind of right? That's what we're trying to figure out, Hughes said. But we need you to meet with her, carefully, with guards. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but words didn't come. All he could think of was the look she gave him in the ruins, the look that felt like gratitude and something more. Within minutes, he was escorted to the border checkpoint. The air was cold, and the alien wind carried a metallic scent. Ethan could see HFY standing calmly in the open field, the child awake now and clutching her cloak. She looked up the moment Ethan approached. She didn't look hostile. If anything, her expression softened, the markings on her cheeks glowing slightly under the alien sun. She spoke first. Her voice carried across the quiet space between them. Ethan didn't understand the language, but he understood her meaning through her tone. She was asking permission. She was acknowledging him. She was relieved he came. The translator device crackled as the linguist activated it. A rough translation played out. She says, "You risked your life for my blood. The bond must be honored." Ethan's eyes widened. Bond? What bond? HFY continued, her gaze never leaving him. The linguist listened and translated again. She says, "In my people's law, a life saved must be repaid with loyalty and protection. You shielded my child. I now shield you. You belong to my clan. Ethan nearly choked. Belong? No, hold on. Serenia spoke more firmly, and the translator processed her tone carefully. She says, not as a prisoner. As one under my honor. Under my guardianship. Under my oath. Ethan felt a small wave of confusion mixed with something strangely warm. She wasn't claiming him as property. She was offering protection, respect, a place in her clan. That was their tradition. The child reached out toward Ethan with a shy smile. Something inside him softened, even as the humans behind him whispered anxiously. Serenia stepped closer. She moved slowly, giving Ethan plenty of time to step back if he wanted to. He didn't. Her presence was calm, not threatening. She placed her right hand over her heart, then extended that hand toward his chest. Ethan hesitated. Her eyes begged him to understand. The linguist whispered, that gesture means she wants to know your acceptance. It's not an order. It's a request. Ethan took a slow breath and gently placed his hand against hers. Serenia inhaled sharply, almost as if the moment meant more to her than she expected. Her markings glowed brighter. She said something softly. The translator lagged, then produced the words. She says, now you are part of my circle. Ethan didn't know how to respond. He didn't know what responsibility he had just taken. But he knew she meant it sincerely. Suddenly, a loud beep came from the human side. Officers rushed forward with urgent expressions. Something was happening back at the base. Hughes grabbed Ethan's arm. We have to go. There's a situation. Ethan nodded, but Serenia stepped between them, her posture protective. The translator crackled as she spoke. She says, he is under my vow. You will not harm him. 2. Hughes raised his hands. We're not harming him. We're taking him to safety. Serenia narrowed her eyes, then turned to Ethan. She leaned down slightly, placing her forehead near his level. Ethan didn't know what that meant, but he didn't move. The translator picked up faint words. I return for you. Do not fear. I protect you now. Then she stepped back, holding her child close, and walked away with quiet strength. Ethan watched her go, his heart beating strangely fast. He knew this wasn't the end. He knew she'd return, but he didn't know how deeply he was now tied to her world. Back at the human base, officers were gathered around a holographic screen showing new intelligence. Ethan stood among them, still trying to process everything. The room buzzed with nervous energy. One officer pointed at the screen. Serenia Cothrael is a respected leader. If she believes this human is linked to her through some ancient law, this could affect the treaty. It could cause conflict or strengthen peace. Another added, her people already think Ethan is part of her clan now. That's how strong their traditions are. Hughes turned to Ethan. Do you understand the position you're in? You've become important. Ethan let out a slow breath. I didn't ask for any of this. No, Hughes said gently. But you did the right thing. And sometimes the right thing leads to unexpected paths. Later that afternoon, Ethan walked to the medical wing to check on the bruises he earned while protecting the child. The medic patched him up, insisting he rest. But Ethan couldn't settle. His mind replayed Serenia's words, translated or not, and the way she stood between him and danger. A warrior, protecting him. The idea was both strange and strangely comforting. Suddenly, the hallway lights flickered. The alarms triggered briefly, then stopped. Ethan stepped outside, seeing soldiers gathering again. What now? He muttered. A shout came from the lookout tower. Movement in the southern perimeter. Ethan rushed to the observation deck. His breath caught when he saw her. Serenia was walking toward the base again, but this time, she carried no child and no weapons. She walked with purpose, eyes locked forward, like someone who had made a decision that couldn't be undone. Ethan hurried down as Hughes and the other officers rushed outside. Serenia stopped several meters away, raising both hands to show she meant no harm. She spoke calmly, but her voice carried strength. The translator repeated her words. I request Ethan Ward come with me. His place is with my clan. I offer him safety, honor, and a role that will stop war." Ethan stepped forward despite the officer's protests. Serenia watched him with a quiet intensity. She extended her hand again, palm open, filled with unspoken trust. Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know what he was stepping into. But he did know one thing: Serenia was not threatening him. She was trying to protect him. Claim him. Claim him. Yes. But not as property. As someone she respected. As someone she believed mattered. As someone she would fight for now. He reached out slowly, and her fingers curled around his. A soft glow formed where their hands met. The translator whispered the final words she spoke. "Come. Let me show you your place among my people." And for the first time, Ethan didn't feel fear or confusion. He felt chosen. Ethan walked beside Serenia as she led him away from the human base and toward the open plains of Varian. Her grip on his hand was firm but gentle, as if she were guiding him through something important. He could feel the warmth of her skin even through his glove. The alien sun painted the sky with violet and gold, and the wind carried a faint humming sound from distant structures. He had never been this close to her world before, so close that he could sense it breathing around him. Her steps were steady, confident, while Ethan's mind was full of questions. But even with all the confusion, he didn't pull away from her. Something about her presence made him feel strangely safe, as if she would never let anything harm him. Not after what happened with her child. Behind them, a small group of human soldiers followed at a distance, making sure Ethan was not being taken by force. But Serenia never tightened her hold on him. She wasn't dragging him, she was inviting him. And each step made Ethan understand that more clearly. Soon, they reached a transport craft, an alien vehicle shaped like a smooth silver wing resting on the ground. Serenia let go of his hand and spoke softly to the craft's guard. The alien bowed to her, then looked at Ethan with curious eyes before stepping aside. Serenia turned back to Ethan, her expression calm but serious. The translator around Ethan's neck caught her words with only a slight delay. "I take you to my capital. My people must see you. They must understand why you matter." Ethan looked back at the human soldiers. Colonel Hughes gave him a tight nod. "We'll monitor everything," Hughes said quietly. "You're not alone, Ethan. Just be careful." Ethan faced Serenia again. "I don't fully understand what you want from me," he admitted. Serenia stepped closer, her gaze gentle. "You protected my child with your body," she said through the translator. "On Varian, that is not a small act. It is a sacred choice." She paused, lifting her hand to touch his chest again, right where she had touched him before. "You showed us what we forgot. Compassion, courage without hate." Ethan swallowed. He still felt embarrassed whenever she praised him like that. "I just did what anyone should have done." "Not anyone," Serenia whispered. "Only you." Before he could respond, she guided him into the craft. Inside, the walls shimmered with soft light. Seats formed from the floor, as if grown, not built. Ethan sat near the window, watching the planes stretch behind them. The craft lifted smoothly, rising into the alien sky. Serenia sat beside him, her child asleep in the back, breathing softly against her shoulder. The capital appeared like a slow dawn. Tall blue towers curved toward the sky, connected by glowing bridges. Floating gardens drifted like islands above the city. Ethan stared in awe as the craft descended. He had seen alien architecture in reports before, but being inside it was different, alive, humming, vibrant. When they landed, a group of alien elders and warriors waited outside. Their clothing had patterns similar to Serenia's, but hers were brighter, more refined. The people murmured among themselves as she stepped out with Ethan beside her. Some looked shocked, some curious, some hopeful. Serenia raised her hand to silence them. She spoke loudly enough for all to hear, her voice carrying strength. The translator struggled to keep up, but Ethan understood the message. "This human saved the life of my child when our own machines would have killed him." He showed honor in the middle of destruction. By the ancient right, he is under my protection. He is part of my circle. A ripple of surprise spread through the crowd. Ethan felt dozens of eyes on him. He tried not to fidget, even though he felt incredibly out of place. One elder stepped forward, his age shown in the gentle cracks of his markings. Serenia Cothrail, he said, his tone questioning. Do you claim that this human must be bound to your family? Serenia nodded proudly. Yes. Ethan almost choked. Bound? Family? He looked at Serenia, who turned to him with soft eyes. Not forced, she added quickly. He chooses. He walks beside us if he wishes. The elder studied Ethan. Human Ethan Ward, do you accept protection from Serenia's clan? Every alien fell silent. Ethan felt the weight of the question. His heart thumped loudly in his chest. He could return to the base and pretend none of this happened. Or he could accept a place among these people who clearly valued honor, loyalty, and the bravery he showed. He remembered the child clutching him, Serenia kneeling in gratitude, her stepping between him and military officers, her walking all the way to the human base to personally ask for him. He took a slow breath. I don't know what the future holds, Ethan said carefully, but I want to help. I want peace between our worlds. And if my place with your people can help that, then, yes, I accept. The elder nodded slowly, then turned to the others. A soft wave of approval moved through the crowd. Serenia exhaled, relief softening her strong features. She stepped toward Ethan, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. Then come, she said softly. There is more to understand. She led him through the city, showing him their halls of memory, where recorded voices told stories from centuries ago. She showed him the healing centers, where alien medics used glowing crystal technology to repair wounds without pain. Children ran by, some stopping to stare at Ethan with wide, curious eyes. A few even touched his arm shyly before running away laughing. Serenia watched these moments carefully, as if testing how her people reacted to him. And each time someone treated Ethan kindly, she seemed relieved. Later, she took him to a quiet garden suspended above the city. The air was warm, filled with floating lights that looked like tiny stars drifting between leaves. Ethan stood near the edge, looking down at the city. Your world is beautiful, he said softly. Serenia stepped beside him. It has known too much war, she replied. Our children learn strength, but they forget gentleness. They respect honor, but they fear weakness. She turned to him. Then you came. A human, protecting an enemy child with no thought for yourself. My people have not seen such an act in generations. Ethan looked at her. You make it sound like I'm someone special. Her voice softened. To my child you are, to my clan you are, and to me. She stopped herself, as if she said too much. But Ethan understood. The connection between them was no longer just a cultural bond. It was something personal, something growing. Before he could speak, an alarm echoed across the city, deep, pulsing, urgent. Serenia's face changed instantly. She turned toward the sound, her posture alert. There is trouble on the border, she said. Attack drones from a rogue faction. They threaten your base. Ethan's heart tightened. My people? Yes. He moved to run back to the transport, but Serenia caught his arm. You cannot go alone. You are under my protection. If you return to danger, so do I. Ethan shook his head. I can't let my people face this without warning. She stepped closer, gripping his shoulders. Then we warned them together. Minutes later, they were flying toward the border. Serenia contacted her forces, ordering them to intercept the rogue drones. Ethan sent a message to the human base, warning them to take defensive positions. When they arrived, smoke rose from the far hills. Human soldiers scrambled into formation, unsure whether the approaching alien crafts were enemies or allies. Serenia stood tall as she exited the craft, raising her hands high. Her markings glowed as she shouted a command in her language. Her warriors took positions, forming a protective circle around the base rather than attacking it. The rogue drones approached with violent speed. Ethan took cover near the front of the base, shouting instructions to the soldiers. Serenia stood beside him, her eyes sharp, tracking each incoming threat. The battle was brief but intense. Alien warriors neutralized the rogue drones quickly, fighting like shadows moving through the smoke. Humans fired in support, matching their pace. For the first time ever, both sides fought together side by side, not against each other. When the last drone fell burning to the ground, a strange silence filled the area. Then, slowly, humans lowered their weapons, and aliens sheathed theirs. Serenia looked at Ethan, her chest rising with heavy breaths. "Today," she said softly, "two worlds fought as one." Ethan smiled. "Maybe this is the start of something better." She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "You brought us to this moment. You saved my child. You respected our laws. And you accepted a place in my clan." She touched her forehead gently to his. A sign he now understood. Meant deep respect and trust. "Ethan Ward, you changed more than one life today." Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest. "I didn't do it alone." Serenia held his gaze. "You are part of us now. Part of me. And I will stand with you in whatever future waits." Ethan didn't know where this bond would lead, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. By shielding one child, he had opened a path to peace that no soldier or politician had ever managed before. And as Serenia and her child stood beside him with two armies watching in silence, Ethan Ward understood that he had become more than a soldier. He had become a bridge between worlds, and neither world would let him go. The battlefield was quiet for the first time in months. Smoke drifted softly over the hills, mixing with Varian's pale purple air. Human soldiers and alien warriors stood near each other, not as enemies but as tired fighters who survived something together. The tension that once split the land in two now felt thinner, weaker, like a thread ready to break not from pressure, but because it was no longer needed. Ethan Ward stood at the center of it all, looking around as if trying to understand how things had changed so quickly. Yesterday, he was just a human soldier trying to do the right thing. Now, both sides looked at him with new eyes. Respect, curiosity, hope. Serenia Cothrail stood beside him, her tall figure steady, her markings glowing faintly. Her child clung to her cloak, peeking at Ethan with a small smile. The boy, or what Ethan guessed was a boy, had recovered quickly since the rescue. His fear had faded, replaced by trust. Ethan crouched down slightly to meet the child's eyes. "You doing okay?" he asked softly. The child nodded shyly, then reached out to touch Ethan's arm. The gesture was simple, but it made Serenia's expression soften even more. Colonel Hughes approached, brushing dust from his uniform. "Ethan," he said quietly, "we need you back at the base for a briefing. High Command wants an update." Serenia stepped forward a little, her eyes narrowing protectively, but Ethan lightly raised his hand. "It's okay," he told her. "I won't be far." The translator hung around his neck flickered as it picked up Serenia's words. "Return safely," she said firmly. "I will come for you soon." The way she said it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise. Ethan and Colonel Hughes walked back toward the human base, while Serenia remained with her warriors, giving instructions. Inside the briefing tent, Ethan found several officers, medics, and diplomats waiting. Screens displayed maps, reports, and drone footage from the earlier attack. The room felt heavy, but not with fear, more like anticipation. Hughes motioned for Ethan to sit. "Ward, you've created quite a situation." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I didn't exactly plan for any of this." One diplomat leaned forward. "Serenia's claim on you, it's not ownership. We understand that now. Her people see it as honor, protection, a bond that brings peace." Another added, "And because of that bond, the Alien Council is willing to negotiate. They believe if Serenia trusts a human, maybe humans can be trusted as partners." Ethan blinked. "So, Saving the child started all this? Yes, Hughes said. And what happened today, the joint defense proved it. Ethan leaned back, letting it sink in. He never imagined his simple instinct to protect a child would lead to this. It felt unreal, yet deeply meaningful. One diplomat hesitated before speaking again. Ethan, there's something else. The Alien Council has formally invited you to speak at their capital tomorrow. Serenia herself requested it. Ethan straightened. Me? Speak? About what? About what you saw, what you did, and what peace could look like. The diplomat answered. They trust you, because Serenia trusts you. The room fell silent for a moment as Ethan processed that. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a politician. He was just a man who couldn't walk away from a crying child. But maybe that was enough. Hughes placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to accept, but you're the bridge right now, Ethan. And bridges matter. Ethan didn't give his answer yet. He needed time. He stepped outside the tent and breathed the evening air. Shadows stretched across the ground as the purple sun dipped lower. The sky looked peaceful, almost gentle. Footsteps approached. Ethan turned and felt a small flutter of surprise. Serenia was there. She must have come faster than he expected, moving through the human area with confidence. Soldiers stepped back as she walked toward Ethan, but none tried to stop her. Her presence was powerful, but calm. Serenia stopped in front of him, studying his face. You look troubled, she said softly through the translator. Ethan let out a slow breath. They want me to speak at your capital tomorrow. About everything. Serenia nodded. Yes. I asked them. Ethan blinked. You did? I want my people to hear the truth from you, she replied. Not from commanders, not from fearful voices. From the human who protected my child even when the world told him we were enemies. Her words carried weight. She stepped closer, her tall form casting a soft shadow over him. You have something rare, Ethan Ward. A heart that does not change with the uniform you wear. Her eyes lowered briefly. Such hearts are the ones that make peace real. Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest. He didn't know what to say, but Serenia didn't need words to understand his feelings. She reached out and lightly touched his arm, a gesture that meant reassurance in her culture. Her child approached, holding a small, glowing crystal. The child offered it to Ethan shyly. Ethan accepted it carefully. It felt warm, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Serenia explained, It is a token from my clan. It means you are welcome among us. Ethan smiled gently. Thank you. The child smiled widely for the first time. Serenia looked toward the horizon. Tomorrow's gathering will change our future. But you will not stand alone. I will be by your side. Ethan nodded. For the first time since all this began, he didn't feel uncertain. He felt ready. The next morning came quickly. Human escorts led Ethan to the alien transport that Serenia sent. He wore clean armor with a white band to show truce. When he boarded the craft, Serenia and her child waited inside, both dressed in ceremonial clothing with intricate silver markings. The flight was quiet but calm. Serenia watched Ethan thoughtfully. You are thinking too much, she teased gently. Ethan chuckled softly. Can you blame me? I've never talked in front of an alien council before. You will speak from your truth, she said. That is enough. The craft landed on a grand platform overlooking the entire capital. Thousands of aliens had gathered, their eyes glowing softly as they looked toward the arriving visitors. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen a crowd like this, and they were all waiting. For him, Serenia placed a hand lightly on his back. Walk with me, she said. As they approached the council chamber, voices hushed. Elders in tall robes stood waiting. At the center of them was a single platform shaped like a blooming flower made of crystal. Ethan stepped onto it. The crowd watched with absolute silence. A council elder spoke. Human Ethan Ward, you stand before us, chosen by one of our own. Speak your truth. Ethan inhaled deeply. He talked about finding the child, about shielding him without thinking, about how a life, any life, deserved protection. He spoke about fear, misunderstanding, and how small acts could change everything. He didn't use fancy words or political speeches. He spoke simply, honestly, and the crowd listened. Serenia stood off to the side, watching him with pride. Her child held her hand tightly, eyes shining as they looked at Ethan. When Ethan finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the elder bowed, and the entire crowd followed. Ethan felt overwhelmed. Serenia stepped toward him, touching her forehead gently to his slowly, meaningfully. "You have done what even the strongest warriors could not," she whispered. "You opened a door between our worlds." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "I didn't do it alone, yet you stood first," she replied softly. "And that matters more than you know." A new treaty was signed that day. Humans and aliens agreed to work together publicly for the first time. Fear was replaced by curiosity. Hatred slowly began to melt, and through it all, Serenia remained close to Ethan, not as a commander claiming him, but as a partner walking beside him. Someone who respected him, trusted him, needed him. That night, as the capital glowed with festival lights celebrating the new era, Ethan walked through the floating gardens. Serenia approached quietly, her child asleep in her arms. She looked at Ethan with a gentle expression. "Our worlds begin again today," she said. Ethan nodded. Together, Serenia stepped closer until they stood side by side, watching the drifting lights above the city. "Your place," she whispered, "is wherever you choose. But know this, Ethan Ward, my clan's door is always open to you." Ethan smiled softly. "And I won't forget that." For the first time in a long time, the world felt full of hope, and Ethan Ward, the soldier who once walked through ruins alone, now stood at the center of two united worlds, with a future brighter than he ever imagined.